Alright, so we all know that with the release of the King and Yellow, setups are becoming more diverse in terms of how and where they can be used. Specifically in the late game and end game, two primary King and Yellow setups have been emerging, and I'm going to be discussing what they look like today. So yeah. The first setup is based around making use of the King and Yellow's ability to allow for Deathbite and Devon to be able to damage all sorts of enemies, and of course have the counter damage against Cosmic Tower enemies, which will allow for one-shots when abilities are utilized. This is because under normal circumstances, Deathbite's ability will do 50% health damage, Devon will do 90% health damage at a max level, and when that is multiplied by 2, it goes beyond 100% of the target's health, or sits at 100% of the target's health, which enables for a one-shot. And of course, in the elemental challenges where you don't have access to that counter damage, instead where your damage is halved, you'll see the utilization of Anubis to allow for the damage multiplier to be applied, which will allow for a one-shot when there is a Anubis mark applied on the enemy that Deathbite or Devon is casting their ability on, and King and Yellow is still used in these setups because you still want to be able to damage fairies and whatnot, which are, pretty common and important enemies to deal with. The next type of King and Yellow setup you'll see is an Amaterasu Mythic Toolbox type that aims to brute force through the endgame levels by taking advantage of the insane buffs from Hellhound and the insane damage from Amaterasu, as well as damage multipliers from Anubis, strong stuns, and CC. So you can, just brute force through the later levels while being able to damage all the enemies. So although this setup I'm showing here doesn't really include Deathbite and Devon, what you'll actually see is a merge between the first and second build in a lot of the endgame setups, right? So a lot of times, rather than having something like a Zeus here, you'll see something such as a Deathbite. So you can take advantage of the Anubis buff and, kind of merge the best traits of the two setups. Although, it's still a pretty different variation from the pure Devon Deathbite one, because a main damage dealer now is, of course, Amaterasu double buffs, which takes up an entire row. And then it's also much more, difficult to obtain, because you do need a lot of these units that are a lot harder to get, that are in time lock rotations and cost a lot more gold to upgrade, or cost gold to be useful in the first place, right? Because something like Deathbite can be at level 1 and it'll be perfectly good, right? Still doing 50% health damage. So these are going to be the two main variations of King and Yellow setups. You'll have Deathbite Devon, percent health, taking advantage of multipliers, a little bit more budget friendly, or you'll have these brute force, incredibly strong Mythic Toolbox types, which are a little bit more difficult to obtain, except very, very strong as well. So that's going to be it for this video. Utilize whichever setup you want to utilize, because they're both very strong. Both can beat elemental challenges at hard mode. Both can go ahead and beat Cosmic Tower. So like, subscribe, and see ya.